bird. It's a plane.
Oh no, it's only Frank.
It's the Frank Show, what? The Frank Show, come on, the Frank Show, what? The Frank Show, come on, the Frank Show, what? The Frank Show, come on, Frank Show. It's time for the show. Aloha, headsets, Frank here, and it is review time yet again. Today, we're going zombie hunting in VR. Originally starting as an Unreal Tournament mod in 2005, Killing Floor, the co-op first-person shooter, saw a full retail release in 2009. Then, 7 years later, we received Killing Floor 2, which got even greater praise than the original. Then, only 2 years later, we have Killing Floor Incursion, first in the series built from the ground up for virtual reality. First revealed at E3 2016, Incursion was initially created to show the abilities of the Oculus Touch controllers, and upon full release, the game was met with mixed reviews. Many were underwhelmed and frustrated with the movement system, expecting the same gameplay that made Killing Floor 2 fantastic, only in VR. Finally, 6 months after the PC release, Incursion makes its way over to PlayStation, but is it any good? Well, that's what you're here for, right? Like any other game in the series, all 4 main missions and the holdout mode can be done cooperatively, and this is easily the best way to play. Hopping in with a buddy and tackling the various tasks and waves of enemies is a joy which doesn't translate as well when playing single player. The story is nothing fantastic. You're in a testing facility, something goes wrong, the bad guys are good, yada yada, all the tropes you've come to expect from zombie-related games, but you're not playing for the story. You're here for the combat, which is actually pretty fun. The main missions take you across 4 different areas, each separated into a few smaller maps and each concluding with a boss. The main missions have you start at point A, find a way to access point B, then fight off wave after wave of zombies as you attempt to transition to point B. It's fun, but when playing alone, it can get pretty old fast. The built-in voice chat and online matchmaking make it pretty easy to find a buddy to play with, and I definitely suggest it. When you know that every time you enter a new area, wave after wave of zombies are about to flood in, it's a bit more fun and less tricky with a partner. You can actually get overwhelmed pretty fast, and a slightly awkward movement system can sometimes be frustrating. The weapons are varied, ranging from pistols and shotguns to fire axes and katanas, each offering a little edge over the next. Before starting each mission, you choose your loadout, and as you progress through the game, you're given more options to choose from at the start. The melee weapons are my personal favorite, and since the enemies can be dismembered, it is genuinely fun chopping off a few arms, legs, and heads. Finally, the real replayability in this title is the holdout mode, which puts you in one of 5 different locations and has you taking out never-ending stream of enemies by yourself or with a buddy. Unlike the main missions, the gameplay has a much more arena-style feel to it, with randomly spawning weapons and power-ups. I like the mode, but it kinda just becomes a game of let's run around in a circle while this group of enemies slowly grows behind me as you get further along. It no longer becomes fun, and it's more just an act of waiting for your endurance to build up, holding a location, then teleporting to a new spot as soon as a wave of enemies hits. Talking about teleporting, you can also move freely within the game world by holding down your offhand move button and pointing, but be careful. It's very easy to get stuck on random assets, and many areas still need teleportation to reach. I found myself using a mix of both because it's impossible to rely on just one. Where free movement has you stumbling all over, teleportation has an endurance effect built into it that makes it so you can't teleport all over the place quickly. I understand why they did it, but when you just want to hop into VR, destroy zombies, and feel awesome, it's kind of a hassle. The weapon system works much better than the movement, but still has its issues. Incursion has you using both move controllers to handle your weaponry, and you're given 4 slots, a flashlight, and a spot for grenades. You can reach over your shoulders to access your melee weapons or larger guns, and you can access your pistols in your holsters on your side. I often found it difficult to hit the sweet spot that holsters your pistols and holds your grenades, so a lot of the time I was shooting at the ground or dropping ammo. It's not that big of an issue, but when you run out of ammo, start getting overwhelmed, and the reload animation on your pistols seem to be taking forever, it can lead to some unnecessary deaths. The visuals were overall pretty nice. I mean, there's slight tearing all over the place, and enemy lighting doesn't always match that of the environment, but luckily none of that really affects the gameplay, and after you blasted through through a few headshots and the game slows down time, watching that brain matter expel in slow motion is quite the treat. The game does a lot of things very well. I love the fluid menu system. I think the audio and visuals work great together to create a nice sense of presence, and the combat has a certain tactile quality that leaves you wanting more, but I'm still not convinced I really love the game. I'm just not the biggest zombie shooter fan to begin with, so I try to be as objective as possible, and this one still hasn't convinced me. The combat is fun, but extremely repetitive. The bosses just feel like bullet sponges, and most of them I had to run around in circles to defeat, which really isn't fun, it's work. End of the day, I'm giving this one a B-. The combat can be both brutally satisfying and mind-numbingly benign. The visuals are solid and the tracking works pretty well, but anytime you're not facing their designated direction, a big blue set of arrows takes up the whole screen and reminds you to turn, something I personally hate seeing in VR. Although I do enjoy chopping off heads and using arms and legs as weapons, but I'm not sure that's enough to keep me coming back a month from now. All right, so what you think? You gonna grab it? You gonna wait for a sale? Or you just gonna say forget about it? Let me know below. Thank you for coming through. I hope you enjoyed the review, and more important than all of that is that if you want to stay up to date on any and everything PlayStation VR and you don't mind this ugly mug, friggin' subscribe. I mean, come on. Smooches. It's the Frank Show. What? The Frank Show. Come on, the Frank Show. What? The Frank Show. Come on, the Frank Show. What? The Frank Show. Come on, Frank Show. It's time for the show.